worked on events? Good question.
Is there a title?
I think we have a title. I'm just going to start sharing screen here a wee second and get presentation.
Thank you. This is why Niamh is so amazing. I'm like, titles, things. Yes. I know things.
Just 2 seconds, I'm going to get the presentation here, but
yeah, I would also like to say I met Niamh and Han on the project, and now I force them to have dinner with me all the time. So that's friendships can happen in your 20s and later. Contrary to what the radio was telling me this morning. Yes, how to look after your well-being as a social media user in the arts.
There it is.
There it is. I was like, it's long, but I don't remember what it is. But yeah, so I mainly use Twitter. Niamh used to be a participant and has moved into being a professional human on the internet. And Han is very good at Instagram, but Niamh's using all of them all at once. Yeah. Will we get a wee start? Well, we all say hello, actually. So yeah, hello, I'm Soso. Oh yeah, that's not me. Shit, I was meant to I was meant to upload a picture. And I was like, oh, but that person looks really nice. Kind of looks like me.
You squint. That's
me. I'm a lead strategist. No, I'm not a lead strategist. I'm a freelancer.
You're our lead strategist.
And Niamh is?
So as Stephen said, I'm the youth ambassador on the project, and I've thrown in the handle for our accounts there because sometimes I would be posting on those. I'm going to chat a bit about that in the presentation as well. And then Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a freelance designer and illustrator, but I'm also a Reimagine participant, and there is a shameless plug for my Instagram.
So today we're going to chat a wee bit about social media and the impact it can have on us. Here are some of the like kind of topics that we're going to cover, but I think we'll probably just get started. The only other thing we wanted to say, and Hannah found this amusing gift to say it with.
Yeah, because it's October, we need a spooky gift. But yeah, if you have any questions or thoughts during it, stick it in the chat. Like, don't be afraid to just like type out what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Spooky skeleton.
So we were going to start with a Mentimeter. So if you're able to, like, either like just on your computer or on your phone, if you type in menti.com and it'll ask you for a code, and if you can type in that first code there, it's 3768427. And I'm just going to bring that up really to get a bit of discussion started. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to get our Mentimeter.
I love Mentimeter so much.
Oh, I can see a few of them are coming in already. I'm just going to start sharing this.
How many different ones do I use?
Yeah, and sorry, the code again is 3768427.
Is there 3 questions?
Yeah, so it's just the question is, what social media do you use? So you can just type in like as many different types of social media as you want. I can see here loads of different ones flying in, and like based on how many answers one gets, it'll increase the size of the word. So like the big ones here seem to be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but we also have like Reddit and WhatsApp.
Yeah. What's a dribble? I'm so excited. I was hoping to find out.
It's a designer kind of social media. So you're invited to it. It's like a really exclusive, silly enough. You have to like get an invitation to it, and you then like post design stuff. It's become like, you know, if you're a designer, you have to have a dribble kind of thing. So I didn't say that, first of all. I'd like to say somebody else put that in there. That's class. Somebody else is on dribble.
Interesting.
Wow,
Let
professional.
me have a look at who's in here. I imagine it's probably somebody from the IXD course.
I'm thinking, I look
yeah.
at Instagram winning out over Twitter and Facebook. Mm. Snapchat's small. I don't use Snapchat, but
Oh, somebody else is on CoStar.
oh yeah, CoStar.
Oh, that's me. That's me. I love it.
So good.
Oh, what's
So
CoStar?
good.
I never thought of it as a social media, and we were just talking about this yesterday. What is a social media? That is so true. It is a social media.
Oh, I love it. We need to add each other on it. I'm obsessed. So bad.
We'll get another thread going. We'll put in our co-stars. And this
Oh, definitely.
with multiple threads of like it's so mad, yeah. Because we were arguing yesterday, is email, well, we weren't arguing. We were just like, is email a social media? TikTok, yeah, that's one.
Right enough, is it a social media? That's such a weird one. Because like technically it is, but
That's what we
you
were
don't
saying.
really look at it like that.
Mhm.
No, Goodreads. I wouldn't have considered Goodreads a social media either, but I suppose it is. It's like a book social media. Quite cool.
Same.
Oh my god, yeah, no, that's really cool. And I completely forgot about YouTube. Completely forgot about YouTube.
Yeah.
You see it like TV. And Etsy as well.
I think it's definitely a good thing to see kind of less traditional ones coming through, because people are already recognizing that, like, actually, if we counted all this up, we spend a lot of time on social media. Whereas you might just initially be like, oh, it's just Twitter and Instagram that I have, or I'm just on Facebook every so often. But actually, like, there's so much more beyond that as well that takes up our time.
Even Spotify, I actually turned off the thing where people can see, where it's linked to people,
Mm-hmm.
to make it less like a social media.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to see that I'm listening to ABBA at 6 a.m.
Will we move on to the next question?
Yeah, that's
Sarah?
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Instagram seems to be the largest.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
We
interesting.
can share the results of that as well.
Yeah.
Just want to move on to our next question here. So I think it's just the same code for this, but it's a new question here we have. So it's, how does social media make you feel? So are you able to like click on to the next question, or do you have to re-enter that code?
There should be a next question button at the bottom. And yeah. Sorry.
Bless you.
How does social media make me feel? Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Ah.
Oh,
that's
connected
amazing.
is
yeah, that's
a big one, yeah.
yeah. Exhausted Twitter. Yeah. Twitter is so hopeful. Instagram.
Hopeful and inspired.
I love the addition of what social media makes them feel a certain way, like inspired Instagram, exhausted Twitter. Gives me FOMO, gives me massive
FOMO, that's a big one, yeah.
burnout.
It's nice though that like the biggest one is actually, it could be positive or negative, I guess, but I like the fact that it's not just something that's completely negative. Like,
yeah,
we do have a bit of both there, you know.
Yeah.
I guess what we're hoping to do through this workshop is to keep as much of that connected feeling and get rid of as much of those sad feelings, and those keep inspired and connected central, and use lots of
connected in a way that you have like control over as well. So it's not feeling like you have to be connected if you don't want to be, that you can take time away from that too.
Yeah. Oh, shallow. Interesting. Distracted is a big one, especially whenever you're like, you've like 10,000 things to do, but you're like, I'm going to scroll on TikTok for 5 hours.
Loads of stuff going through there.
Annoyed and fake. Yeah. There's a lot of like burnout and draining, which is hopefully, and melted. Hopefully what we can talk about the strategies to ensure that that is, because it takes up so much of your soul, not your soul, but like your energy, really does.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And what's the last question?
Yeah, I need, the last question is a different code. So if you can all just go back onto menti.com and I'll bring up the code for it now. But really just for the last question, we wanted to focus, I suppose, a bit more on positives. So thanks so much for sharing all of that though.
Yeah, it's also true.
Yeah, it is
Very
definitely.
true.
I could see even there, because of the way it works with, you know, bigging up the words that get the most results, there were a lot of kind of words that maybe meant the same thing or that were related that didn't, you know, get that big attention, but like there was definitely a lot there.
Yeah,
that was the
connections for
same.
sure.
And so this is the last one now. So if you're just on menti.com again, and if you just type in this code, I'll call it out for you as well. It's 6426208. And that's one of the positives.
Say that again.
64
Thank you.
26 208.
Thank you.
No worries. And this is something hopefully that we'll be able to talk about and cover in the presentation as well. Some of the positives definitely revolve around meeting new people and community, things like staying in touch as well. Like, you know, it helps whenever there's periods of change in your life and the people that you usually would normally see, you can't. And I feel like we all kind of experienced that in a big way in lockdown as well. But definitely like creative expression, that's something that's very much a part of our program and that we'll be able to chat about as well.
Oh, it's so nice seeing lots of positives. I wonder how many people have met. I didn't realize, technically I met all my current friends online because I joined RRR when it was online. So yeah,
Yeah.
and it was helpful during lockdown, very helpful.
No, I definitely do think that's interesting. You know, the participants who just came to this online, or like, for example, if this event is one of your first experiences of RR as well, like usually we are operating in museums and physical spaces and it's meeting people that way. So it's a completely different experience, but one that we're like, you know, hopefully working that you're not losing a quality of experience or you still do feel connected. So that's really important to us as well.
I like how big learning is.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a learning. I want to learn. This makes me feel really happy. I like seeing a big list of positive words.
I know, thank you so much for sending in all those. Like, you can still keep, you know, sending things through there, and if there's anything else you want to talk about, like, just post in the chat as well, because it's great to hear what people are thinking. What is, I can't see the chat right now, so I'm like,
I can read
what are
it.
you laughing at?
Vanessa posted, dating apps really near made me lose the will, but then I met my BF in the end, so I guess it was worth the exercise. Yeah, dating apps do social media. God. Yeah, and it's like everything, especially now, it's just all online, and it's how we get so much work. Yeah, it's interesting. We just wanted to get people thinking, especially because we can't do big mind maps on the internet. Mentimeter is good though, but it's good. It's good.
Can you all see that presentation again? Okay. So, if you can all see that again, we were just going to have a bit of a chat then about our experiences with social media, particularly on the project and working with heritage. So I was going to talk a bit about my experience. So as some of you may know, I was originally a participant on this project. And I've included here some of the things that I kind of would have been posting at the time, because something that I really enjoy about RRR and our use of social media is it's very much the participants getting involved. And we were literally, you know, we had the phones, we were taking pictures and writing whatever we wanted, and we were the ones visible in the boomerangs and kind of just like messing about. I don't know if you can see that, or like, you know, showing our work as well. Like, it was very much us behind the camera and in front of it as well. And then something that kind of recently, as well as, you know, not being in the physical spaces anymore, that changed for me was I started in the youth ambassador role, so being a staff member on the project. And initially, like, I sort of had these feelings of like, would this change how I would post things? Like, I would, you know, be much more like worrying that something wasn't right, or like so much more aware that people were going to see what I was posting, and that it was going to shape, you know, how they viewed things, whether or not they signed up for things. And like, that was quite daunting, but something I tried to just remember myself was that what kind of worked for us was the authentic kind of style to our social media, where it is just, you know, people talking about their experiences and things like that. And that kind of reassured me, and hopefully, you know, that resonates with the other experiences of participants as well. But something that you'll probably hear more about those kind of things is from Hannah and the social media takeover.
Yeah, so me and Soso were asked to do a takeover of the Ulster Museum's Twitter and Instagram account. And I think we just kind of naturally paired off into our specialism. So I'm very visual and I love Instagram. So I kind of was in charge of taking over their Instagram. And I wanted to kind of do something that was authentic to me, while also kind of sharing stuff about the museum that maybe people didn't normally see, and giving it a bit of a younger kind of voice. Because at the moment, I feel a lot of, you know, their posts are, you know, the same kind of tone and attracting the same kind of people. And I thought there was a gap in the market there to kind of do something a bit more creative and, you know, maybe bring my own kind of weirdness to it. So I love memes. Like, when Stephen asked me to first do this, I was like, can I just do memes? That was it. That was like what I was interested in. And I kind of went through the collection online and was kind of like looking at things I thought were interesting. And this weird boy here, this teapot, is a bleak teapot, and I just loved it. And it sent me down an absolute rabbit hole of teapots. So I ended up, if you move on to the next slide there, I ended up creating a series of memes with
they're so
teapots
good
in them. Yeah. Tag yourself in the comments, by the way. I think I am a mix of tranquility and which is kind of controversial, but okay. But I ended up doing these, and I don't think like a lot of us, like people our age, are not going to know about the bleak teapots or in the Ulster Museum, but you know, maybe like kind of by you know, having a look at like these memes and stuff, people are aware of these. Most of them are bleak. The one in the bottom corner, the bottom left, is actually by an Australian ceramicist, so that's not part of the bleak collection, but it was just too good not to include. So like, I was just kind of bringing my own voice to it. I didn't want, we're getting a lot of ahs in the chat. Are you guys okay? I think that's probably lockdown, but I kind of just wanted to bring my own voice to it and kind of share something that maybe not everybody would see necessarily in the collection, and just, you know, kind of just share my own kind of brand of communication, which is obviously memes. You just go to the next slide there, Niamh.
so
Yeah.
much
I know. The chat is like 90% and yeah, so actually went to the Ulster Museum, and you can even in quarantine see the collection now, and they're on display. But I think this is obviously a very different setting and a very different context to online, where people, you know, if you saw this photo online, you don't know what's behind it, you might not engage with it as much. But this, you know, having these things online, it might inspire people to go in person. Obviously it has with Soso, but
yeah,
you know,
I just
might
came
wanna,
across them.
yeah. So if you go to the next slide there, Niamh. So we also kind of had a look at this bog oak brooch, which is, again, the teapot theme was, it just ran away with itself, to be honest. Ended up doing haikus around the kind of theme of these teapots as well. So we had a bit of fun with that as well. It's just kind of like bringing a different kind of creative slant to what was going on, but also in an authentic way. We weren't trying to be like, how do you do, fellow kids? We were just bringing what we like to social media, and if other people engage with that, that was great. And I think it worked because their engagement went up something ridiculous, like 500% on their Instagram, late into the same day in a similar time period in a different week. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about, which I don't know if people get this with their own social media. I know people talk about it a lot, but like Hannah and I just didn't post for the first hour. We were so scared. Well, I was so scared. I was like, I think like we had a chat and I was simultaneously messaging Hannah being like, I'm so scared. And I think this is what like Niamh's talking about moving from like somebody who's just using social media for the crack and the bands to like, I am now a person with this thing that is quite big and professional and a little bit scary. And it's scary enough being an individual trying to navigate social media without being a organization and or like artist who's trying to exist. Um and yeah, so I think like the major thing is people always think that you need to like I went during lockdown. Loads of people kept saying to me, they were like, "You just need to find your authentic voice. Your authentic voice. Like, who are you?" And I was like, "I don't know who I am. Like, I don't know who I am." What I realized was like, when Hannah and I did this takeover, is I actually just like having the absolute fans, and that's who I am, and that's actually fine, and I don't have to be so serious. And like we just did, like we were like, how far can we push this ridiculous thing? We'll make a BuzzFeed quiz, we'll like write a haikus, we'll do this, and we'll just keep pushing it until it's so ridiculous. I'm like, people just like it because it's like you're not like putting on with like when I did the creative writing course with Niamh, and we talked about museum writing, and we talked about like different registers that you need to use. Like, so if you are usually when you're tweeting from like so the Ulster Museum, you have to use like a serious register. You have to be like, I am a serious person who does serious things. But actually, you can just have a mad time and start. I think the first thing I posted was myself coming out of a coffee cup. I was like, "Ooh, coming out of a coffee cup to take over." And it was really funny because there were tweets scheduled for the same day, and the two voices, it just sounded like they were fighting each other on their Twitter feed. It was like they were boxing each other. And it was very strange because then I kept like questioning if I was doing the right thing. Is my voice right? Is this crazy? Am I being crazy? And then I think like similar to what we were sort of saying, I think there was that question from, the I feel like intimidation by other successes can really be felt like on social media, especially. And I think that's where if you have a lovely creative community, like I think Hannah and I could just keep going, and how can we make this even more ridiculous? And we'd be like, Stephen, how can we make this even more ridiculous? And how far can we just like have the absolute crack? I think that's what Vanessa was really getting at this morning, is like when you're enjoying yourself, people really just enjoy like what you're doing. Also when you're sad, like people also enjoy when reading about sad things. But whenever you want to like be ridiculous, I think you can totally just go for it. And I think that's what we started then. I think after doing this, I think Hannah had already refined her voice on like a lot of social media platforms, but after doing this, I think I refined my voice a bit more on my personal artist social media platforms, where I was just like, I can actually just not be too serious.
I actually felt like it helped me so much as well, because there was a combined following between the two accounts of up to like, was it 28,000 or something, like 25,000 on Twitter and about 3,000 on Instagram. and having that kind of control like over that and it going well made me think, right, okay, I don't need to be as serious and as restricted in my own social media. I can kind of bring that like authenticity and, you know, what I like to it, and not be so worried about, you know, oh, is this going to be the right thing? Are people going to unfollow me? That kind of thing, you know. And
Exactly.
I,
The
I'm
fear of the
seeing people,
unfollow. Sorry,
yeah,
continue.
exactly. You know, like I'm seeing people saying in the chat, like museums need more of this and stuff. And museums need more of it, but also I think me and Soso found that we needed a bit more of it as well. So it worked well for both of us, really.
Yeah. Niamh, did you feel like you had to be very serious when you took over?
It was kind of, it's just an internal pressure, like for myself, like you know, just feeling that way and like the fear, as you say, of the unfollows, and then also just because that is a lot of what you're seeing in other kind of, you know, heritage accounts. And I think it's like, you know, it's a thing across the sector that needs to be, you know, that museums need more of that. But I think really for me it was just reminding myself, like, no, if I was to go and go into that register, that wouldn't fit with our project, because that's not what our project's about. It's about being for and by young people, and, you know, having the crack and being creative. And so if I was to, you know, kind of abandon everything I've been doing for years and start writing in this way or talking in this way, I would be completely misrepresenting the project. So I think that's what helped me. But definitely initially I kind of was like having those feelings. Definitely.
I think that's mad interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's something we're going to talk a bit more about later, and something that we're going to come back to as well in the later slides. But at this point we kind of just thought it might be useful, it might not, to have some definitions about kind of capabilities or skills that we develop when we're living in these digital worlds and using social media. And these are two definitions, like we might think these could be improved upon, or we might think that they're useful, but basically it might be interesting to start talking about these and sort of putting into words kind of what we're talking about. That's what we're trying to do in this full presentation, but basically to put into words what we're doing when we're behaving these ways in social media. And these definitions are taken from JISC Digital Capabilities Framework. So they're like a higher education and further education organisation. So there's actually a lot of work in like universities at the minute to try and make sure that students are leaving with these kind of skills that they need for the workplace in a digital age, because students are maybe turning around and they're saying, well, I don't really feel equipped to, you know, be posting on social media in a professional way, or, you know, they're like, I haven't been taught that kind of thing. So that's why these kind of definitions are coming about. So the first one here is digital identity management. And this is how you develop or project a digital identity or several identities, and how you manage your digital reputation. So I'll be interested to hear what people think of that, and especially this part about several identities, like what that means to anybody, what people think about that.
It always messes with my head that you can be multiple people at the same time on the internet. It messes with my head.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to open up the chat here, but like that's definitely like it's a strange experience to start thinking about that, and kind of how we maybe act differently on different platforms. Like, for example, the way you maybe post on a personal profile compared to a professional one, or even just like different types of profile. And I'm going to skip forward because we actually have a meme that really illustrates as well, because we like to talk through memes in this presentation. But I feel like we've all seen these floating about, where it's like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Tinder. And these obviously are quite famous examples of people have mocked up of these, but basically just how one person can have multiple identities, multiple ways of getting on across different types of social media.
Yeah, it's just like you can be like multiple, even in like your real life, like you can be multiple across various platforms.
And I suppose just if anybody like in the chat or between ourselves, like if I think we wanted to ask, do people feel, is there one that's sort of most like themselves, or most, I don't know, I think we had a way of putting it that maybe aligns best with your own identity, or you feel is your most authentic?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. And um, I think, Han, what are you most like? What's your authentic self?
So I'd probably say like Instagram's closest, but because it's all social media, I always feel like it's like always a polished version of me. Like no matter what kind of part of my identity it's representing, it's like that on its best day. Because like I'm not gonna go on Instagram, you know, on the days where I can't like draw. I've forgotten how to draw. Like, you know, I'm not gonna post like my terrible attempt at drawing and like, you know, pictures of me sitting there having an existential crisis, because that's on that platform. That might not be what I want to consistently portray. I want people to see the work that I am doing and I can do. And that doesn't mean that I can't show those sketches and things like that. But if that was all that profile was, I think that might get a bit like boring a bit quickly. So yeah, I'd say Instagram, but like again, very polished up, very polished hand.
Yeah, we have in the chat here, Niamh feels the same, Hannah, and a few comments coming through here. So Lost Len says, I think you can be different on social media or even dating sites if you want to portray yourself in a certain way for people to like you. And I feel like there's 100% that pressure that you feel almost before you post something. You're already thinking of the reaction or the audience. So whether it's a dating site or, you know, you're trying to, you know, present yourself for, you know, a professional kind of capacity, like with your art or your creativity, or even just to be funny. Rosanna says, I've always liked that I have different aspects of my personality which come out with different people and in different situations. So like social media can be an extension of that, which makes sense, and that's 100% too. Like, you know, for some people, like they can find it a really positive experience. And Vanessa says, like, everybody on LinkedIn is like, I love my job. I skipped my own child's birth to map expanding KPIs for customer satisfaction. No, you didn't.
Yeah, that was what we were joking about yesterday. We were like, why is everybody like, Hannah, what is it? It was like,
oh yeah, it was like you know those like humble brag interview posts where they're like, yesterday I was on my way to a job interview and there was a dog on the street, looked hungry and thirsty, so I gave it food and water and missed my job interview. The next day the person who's giving me the interview gave me a call to come in. The interviewer was that dog. I got the job. You know, it's like all these humble brags. I just think LinkedIn can be quite toxic, you know. So I totally agree with that, Vanessa, definitely.
Yeah, I'm the same. LinkedIn for me is, you know, the one I find the most unnatural, or I don't know, I feel like I really have to edit myself or whatever, edit myself in a certain way to post on it. But lots of really interesting comments come through the chats there, so feel free to keep that going and post anything in the Slack. The other definition we have here, which I'd also be interested to see what you think of, is digital well-being. So that's how you look after your personal health, safety, relationships and work-life balance in digital settings.
Yeah, it's the one that I don't really do very well.
I don't think it's a pretty big claim. I feel like it's really all encompassing. Like it's almost like every aspect of your life offline plus digital, and kind of, yeah, like it takes everything into account. So I feel like it's probably a really hard one to do well.
I think it's so difficult. Like I've really struggled, and I don't know if it's just as I got older and had like more responsibilities, or if it's just kind of with lockdown and all. But when I came out of more lockdown, like where we are now, where it's like semi-digital, semi-in-person, I find it so hard to balance my like work life on social media. It's so difficult. Like I realized that it's like a personal character trait that's like really negative, because I kind of had a lot of responsibility, like managing university social media accounts and then my own social media account. But then also I kind of felt like there's so much pressure on me. Like if someone messages me on my own personal one about something that's related to, say, university or work, I can't like ignore that even if I need a break, because I'm like, then no, I'm active on my personal one. Oh, it's so difficult. I hate it. Like it's the worst thing ever. And you don't want people to get annoyed at you either, because there's this like demand to always be online and present and always there, that like people will often say to me like, you're the type that'll just like ignore messages for like an entire day, and I'm like, but I'll get back to you, like I need a break. And sometimes people just don't get that, but I think it depends on like your hobbies, your work life, what you do outside of your own time. Like everyone's so different. Some people have way more free time, others don't. And then like I know that I would be super extroverted, but also I'm the type of person that needs my own introverted time on my own. I like recharge my battery level. So sometimes whenever I go into my own personal space, and then there's loads of people on social media that are like, oh, you know, you need to message me back and this, that, and the other. I'm kind of like, oh gosh, I need a break, but I also feel so bad because say if it's like something nice and these people just want to talk to me, but oh, it's so hard to balance it, I think.
100%, Maeve. You've hit so many nails on the head there, and I really like the way you described like almost coming out of lockdown as being like semi real life and offline and actually digital, because when we're all at home it's almost like we're just existing fully digitally, and it's almost like if that is the case then our digital well-being's, you know, even more important than ever. And I feel like a lot of what you said there is going to resonate with people 100%. Even already, yeah, there's comments in the chat completely agreeing with that.
Yeah, it's so I'm so interested. There's a couple of other comments as well that are sort of lining up with that. Like Jack is saying that Facebook is simply work for him. 3 different professional faces. Like, talk about identity management. Whoa, like I know what you mean. Like whenever you're swapping between pages, and I guess that's maybe I used to manage profiles for different things as well, and you'd be swapping between, and you're just like, and the messages were piling up, and it didn't matter how many messages we replied to because there was always another message. It's just like, you know, and yeah, I just think that's really interesting. And then I hear about unplugged or digital cleansing. I find it helps even if my phone dies, can leave it down and relax. Mind is free to actually think. That sort of lines up with Niamh's good strategy for good digital well-being, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's what I'm sort of going to come on to next, is hopefully like a few tips. Like there's probably no perfect way to do this, but hopefully a few tips that if you're feeling that way, like just as Maeve described there perfectly, that maybe hopefully will help a wee bit. And like the last thing I want to say about digital well-being, just before I move on there, is whenever I was reading about, you know, like the people who were coming up with these definitions, they were talking about digital well-being is a bit of a weird one, because the first thing they said was it's not just your responsibility. The people who are designing websites and apps, it's their responsibility too, to when they're designing them, to think about how they're going to impact the people that is using them, and to have that really in their ethos, that, you know, it's not going to be something that's going to be addictive, that's going to actually end up having, you know, a bad impact on people's mental health. But they sort of said why they included it was whenever we talk about, you know, that people need digital skills to work and study and to live in a digital age, something that's kind of radical to include as a skill is the fact that you can have digital well-being. That's something you need to practice, that it's something that you need to be aware of, how all these things impact on you, but also there is something hopefully that you can do about it, and there's an element of self-care in there and like critical awareness of how these things impact on you. So there's definitely more discussion to be had about that, and it's really, really interesting what you are putting in the chat, so feel free to keep doing that. But moving on from this meme too, just wanted to sort of say, like in my last job, whenever I was kind of doing a bit of research around this, tried to come up with some different tips for people that might help. So one thing, and especially that like a few of you probably will have heard of, is apps or kind of like pre-loaded settings that can come in your devices where you can track your screen time. So this is something that I was kind of doing, especially over lockdown. So you can go in and see how much time you've spent on your device, but even how much time you've spent on certain apps. So like sometimes I would feel like I've been on my phone a lot, but if I can see it's for work, I don't find that as bad. But I also find in lockdown, just because I was home more, that I was spending more time on my phone. But you can even set up kind of alerts. So like I would say I only want to spend a couple of hours or whatever on a certain type of app, I can set up a feature so that whenever I've reached that time limit, I get a little notification, and then I can either say, oh, if I really need to go on for something, I could pause it for like 15 minutes. I can do that, and then that's it. Like I'm not going into that app for the rest of the evening, the rest of the day, or whatever it is. So I'd be really interested, if anybody has experience of using that or how they've found it. But that's something that's definitely worth trying. And I can see here the stuff about the social dilemma. Definitely, I feel like it's
documentary.
yeah.
Yeah, I
know.
watched it. I actually got contacted on Facebook recently because when I was doing my year abroad in America, apparently Facebook was using people's facial recognition data and biometric data. And I was one of the people whose data got stolen by Facebook, essentially. So I'm now part of a class action lawsuit against them. So that's something that happened apparently on Facebook. Yeah, no, I worked in the tech industry for a bit. I know that like a lot of the patterns to look out for and things like that. But on social media especially, just be aware, I guess, that they want you to come back. Like if you've watched the social dilemma, you'll notice that they want you to come back. They want you to re-engage with the platform so they can put you in front of more advertisements and things like that so they can make more money. I think sometimes just being conscious of that as well, you can go, okay, I'm not going to engage with that because that is designed to make me come back,
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think that's key to that digital well-being as well, is understand that it's not just you naturally being on your phone. Like these things are built to make us spend as much time as possible on them. And then that's kind of the next tip about taking a break. That's where that's really, really important. And if you have to do it really consciously and scheduling a break for yourself, or say I'm going to do something, it's not my phone, I'm going to take a walk, I'm going to read a book, I'm just going to have a bit of time where my phone's not there. Like if you have to consciously do that, then go for it. And something, the next tip really I think that links in with that is about turning off notifications. And me, of what you said about like I was the same in uni, where I was doing stuff for societies and you've all these different accounts and you're getting notifications. So like different apps will allow you to turn off notifications in certain ways. But I think even something that can be useful is making yourself kind of inaccessible at certain times when you need to. And sometimes that's even logging out of that app or that account. And it's something that like we don't often do. Like the setting is there for platforms and stuff to remember us, because we think, yeah, that's easy, I can be in all the time, I can get those notifications. And that's the design there, like they're designing that to keep us on all the time. But if you actually actively log out, then you can kind of undo that step and give yourself more distance when you need it. So I know that one's kind of probably a harder habit to get into, but might be useful, especially for that kind of situation. I'm just going to have a wee look. There's more things popping in the chat here. Something I've been trying to work on, Niamh. It's not easy. Like it's really, you're unlearning all these kind of habits as well. So like, it's something that we really kind of have to force ourselves to be like consciously undoing nearly. And then just the last one, the privacy settings. So this is a bit of both. This is the digital wellbeing side and the digital identity side as well. So I think as well for our, not so much the accessibility of like turning on notifications and us looking at different content or spending time on our phones, but kind of being aware of when you post how much that is accessible to other people. So like the digital identity one, something that I think people maybe wouldn't be as aware of is whenever you post something, how long it can stay there, or how anybody, say for example, if you're going for a job interview, not that it should be all about employment or anything either, but like so anyone can kind of like search and find what you're posting if you don't sort of take steps to make your accounts more private. And that's up to each individual to kind of say how comfortable they feel with that. But I think that social media is something we so naturally just set up and start using, that there's almost, you know, there's not a time there where we kind of sit and think about that, or like we all check, yeah, I agree to the terms and conditions without reading them, because sometimes I think it was in that Social Dilemma documentary, but sometimes they make them really long and unreadable on purpose, so that we don't spend the time thinking about that nearly. So take a bit of time, maybe if it's something you're interested in or you think would be helpful for you, to learn about the privacy settings on your different accounts and decide what you want from them. If that makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah, it's all about making it work for you, isn't it? Like, it's whenever, like, I know, like, I had to go through my Facebook recently, like, just look at posts I made from like when I was 12, like angsty posts, like my mum's being horrible or something, and I was like, oh, I better delete these, you know, because they were actually visible to everyone. Like, they were visible to people I wasn't even friends with, and I was just like, I think that's like really unfair, like especially when you're so young, like, and you don't really know what you're doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing on the internet. So, like, it's just annoying that people, yeah, hide the night out photos. Yeah, it's just like it sucks that you can't even have that, but like a distinct boundary of like, you know, my employers can't see this. Like, that should be your right, but ooh, the internet. But we got to make it work for us, which is why we can totally. I love the deleting all of my apps for a day, weekend, or a full week, and like, yeah, I think that was a big one Niamh talked about, was like, I used screen time. iPhone has that screen time thing, but before that I used an app on Android to time out my apps, and it honestly makes a huge difference, because it asks you, doesn't it? It asks you, do you really want to spend more time on this?
Mm-hmm.
And Twitter has a similar thing now. If it senses that you're about to send something vitriolic, like something not very nice, it's like, are you sure you want to send this? Which I thought was very nice, and it's to stop hate speech. But having those digital reminders, because if you think about it, if you were having that conversation with somebody in real life, somebody would be like, are you sure you want to do that? Yeah. Rosie, I'll look up some of the best ones and list them in the Slack, because I can't remember the actual one, but it was just very good. It's I will get a list of those together. Can try them out. And yeah, sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, 100%.
I'm so excited.
You're hitting the nails in the head there. It's all trial and error and trying things out and seeing what works for you. That's why, like, I want to be really clear that that's just a couple of tips, and I myself wouldn't, like, even though I'm saying this, I know myself that I probably need to go and do a lot more of this myself. But it's just that it's starting with the awareness of understanding what the impact it can have on us and what we can do and what we can try. But that's enough of that anyway. I want to get back onto the positives of social media, and Hannah is going to take this away.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like, you know, social media, yes, there are negative sides to it, but when I engage with it, I want to make it work for me. So just on like crafting your digital identities, I think just try to stay true to who you are, your likes, your dislikes, and what you would stand for normally offline. I think if you are trying to be somebody you're not on social media, that'll probably get exhausting very quickly. Like I feel like I've maybe done that in the past, where I've been like so uptight about what I'm posting, being very like censoring myself, you know, I don't want to post this, and you end up posting nothing, and you feel like, what's the point of me even being on here? I think just try to keep it as, you know, similar to how you'd be in real life, you know, again, like Soso was saying there about like on Twitter and stuff, you know, things that you wouldn't say in real life, I guess, obviously, you know, don't say them online. You wouldn't say them anyway. Like, why would you, you know? And similarly, share the things that you share in real life. I would, you know, send pictures of stuff I've drawn to people and be like, hey, look at this, I drew this, because, you know, I love getting feedback. I love sharing what I do with people. And I think online, I kind of try to do that in the same way, where I'm like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? You know, this is what I was thinking when I was doing this. And just on that, the visibility for young creatives, like I've had work opportunities and people talking about my work and people all over the world seeing my work in a way that wouldn't have happened if I'd have just been trying to get it in front of people in Northern Ireland and being like, hey, look at this, share this, do you have any job opportunities, you know? Um, I get a lot of like my freelance work actually through Instagram. While I do have a website, I feel like that's almost like a formality now. Things for like, you know, actual full-time job applications and things like that. My website's mostly for that rather than sharing my work, because I feel like if I post on my website, hardly anybody's going to see it. But if I share that post that I did on my website on social media, or if I post it directly to social media, I will get that engagement. People will see that. So it's really a tool, and it really does depend on how you use it. One thing that I've kind of been learning recently is more about how to kind of get your work in front of places using the right hashtags and things like that. If you're, you know, somebody who has maybe like 500 followers, don't use a hashtag that is like absolutely massive that has 1 million posts on it, because your work is going to get lost. Find smaller audiences and get it in front of them first and build your following. That's kind of a lot of the advice that I've been kind of taking on board recently, and trying to, you know, get my work in front of people on a local level and making social media kind of work for me. So yeah.
Brilliant. It's nice to hear some of the like the more positive sides as well, isn't it? And Hannah, like
Yeah.
you're a really good example of talking about that specifically with your art and with your practice.
Yeah, Hannah, how many people have messaged you on Instagram? Not numbers, but like I just love hearing about how successful your work has been by people seeing it on Instagram and messaging you. I'm sure Vanessa's the same. Like, well, that's how I found Vanessa as well.
I follow Vanessa on social media as well, so I saw her work online. You know, I've only seen her like in person on this chat today, so it definitely works. You know.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Well, everyone, I hope everyone's feeling love and feeling like a big hug in our chat today. That's what we're hoping for, a big cup of soup.
For your social media.
Yeah.
And then we have a couple more positives with this next slide. Soso, you want to say?
Yeah, actually, I was really interested because Rosie pointed out a really similar thing, because I talked to Rosie said, which really resonated with me as well, because I find this as well. For me, I have anxiety, autistic, female, and a characteristic of my autism is masking. So I subconsciously put on a mask in real life, social or public situations. Online, however, I would tend to be my more authentic self. Things like this. And Instagram, I feel I can connect people who I can relate to. And definitely, I come out from my shell. Rosie, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I think I come across much better online than I do in person. That really resonated with me, and it was really talking about the Me Too reassurance. Hearing you say that, I was like, thank you. That's how I feel a lot of the time as well. Like I feel much more comfortable in online communities than I do in sometimes in real life. Sometimes, you know, sometimes though it gets to the point, like, so in my blog post I was talking about how at the start of lockdown I wasn't in a very good place, and I was scrolling through Instagram in a way. I find Instagram is the worst social media for me, which is why Hannah's really Hannah and I are opposites. It's really handy. I want Hannah to manage my Instagram and I'll manage Hannah's Twitter, even though
you make it sound like I've got millions of followers or something. I really don't. I just enjoy Instagram.
He's like, here's a picture. Whereas like I go on and I'm like, I find myself scrolling through, but what I did actually, which really helped, there was a couple of things. Screen time, and like, actually, let me start that sentence again. Instagram, there is a poll on the public health for UK, which Stephen introduced me to whenever we were talking about this festival. And one of their polls last year showed that Instagram was the worst for affecting mental health. So there are great things about Instagram. And I think like Instagram is how I found RRR, and I know Hannah was the same. Like Clodagh messaged Hannah from the
Yeah.
RRR account, and like sponsored advertising through RRR, and it was reaching the right people. It reached me, and I really needed a program. I really needed, as Vanessa was saying, like a creative outlet. I was like, I'm going mad. I'm scrolling through Instagram for hours upon hours upon hours. I didn't realize screen time was a thing on iPhone. I didn't. That's the other thing when you're new to a piece of technology and you don't really know how to work it. And like, I didn't have this phone for very long, and it's just very like, it became very overwhelming very quickly. But then once I put in the sort of boundaries, I put on screen time, I put on I like reduced, like I unfollowed people that weren't making me feel good about myself. That's another thing. I think they said like a huge thing of like, oh, you can't unfollow somebody. Make it work for you, right? If it's making you feel bad, no, just you deserve way more than that. And like, so I think the unfollowing and the screen time, I have it set for 5 minutes because I find that's my cutoff. I spend longer than 5 minutes at a time, I start to sort of end up in a cycle. And I think it's about knowing how things make you feel. You know, how long can I be on this platform before I start to feel a certain way? Or like what posts make me feel a certain way? And like, I think once I started realizing that, that's when I, you know, became open to the good sides of it. That's when I really took more time to engage with even the RR social medias and posting my stuff to get posted on their social medias, which I just would never have done before because I was so anxious. I was just like, oh, don't put my face anywhere. My face sucks, like, you know. But I was like, within a week, I was just doing stuff like that. And I think, yeah, I know we keep harping on about making it work for you, but like, because if it's not working for you, you can't find your community. You know, you can't like fit in, you can't find the RRR, you can't find the projects you want to engage with, you can't find those opportunities if it's making you upset, you know, like, and because it can be such a great thing, it can be such a great thing, but it can also suck so bad. Like somebody wrote about Twitter, I think in our initial one of our Mentimeters, like, you know, oh no, it was in the comments, it was Irene was like, Twitter, everyone's just sad, wants to die. And I was like, yeah, that was me for a very long time on Twitter as well. And I think I stopped posting for a while there because I was like, I saw somebody made a tweet where they were like, is it, they told me to get out, my therapist told me to delete my private Twitter and keep a diary, which I actually thought was groundbreaking. I was like, God, I can delete my private Twitter that nobody reads, and I could actually just keep this by myself at home. So I don't know if that is like in any way helpful, but I guess that's in finding your community, you just need to make sure that it's the healthiest environments for you. In the same way that you would like that we're going to talk about what do you need to make your best work and stuff. What do you need to feel comfortable on Instagram? Like what do you need to feel comfortable on Twitter? Do you need to have friends like that you already know? Well then, you know, ask them, do you mind making an account on this thing and giving me support? I know that's a really scary thing, but the great thing about the arts is that's what you spend 90% of your time doing. You're like supporting each other. It's really nice. And then I think there's coming from Maeve. I think it's difficult even when you're so open on social media. Some people can be so negative, yeah, about simply being yourself. And that's why I agree it's so important to find your community and kind of thrive within that. Yeah, yeah. I had to unfollow family members, I think, on Twitter because I was tweeting a lot about my depression and they really didn't like that. But it was just how I wanted to communicate, and it was how I was communicating during my mental illness. And I think that was, you know, there was a community there that just like, you know, were willing to hear me out. And, you know, that it worked out really well. I'm going to throw us back to more positivity with Niamh.
No, that's great to hear, Sarhan. Like, I'm glad we are back on the positives, and there are real positives to talk about here. Like, you don't want to get like too negative about it in the middle either, but I think that, you know, something that's really resonating with people there is talking about the online community, and like that's really, you know, something that or has hopefully, you know, been for people always, but even more now whenever we, you know, we have to be inside more, and we, you know, sometimes it feels like there's no other option to connect with people than to be online, and that can make it harder. So I just want to say one of the kind of positives of social media is that, for example, we can amplify young people's voices in many ways, heritage being one of them. So for example, like the way our participants, you know, write blogs and do social media takeovers. But even, you know, something like this, the fact that we're talking here today about this, you know, we all put the ads out for this, we all promoted this on our social media, and now here we all are talking on Zoom. So, you know, the fact that things like this can exist, it's because, you know, we're able to harness that community and, you know, work to make it a positive, like, safe space online for people to talk and to share and to connect. And that's, you know, the people working for that and putting into it, and all of you writing in the chat right now today, like, you're the people that are making that happen. And don't underestimate the power that you have to create that community, and then also in your own use to make sure that you're looking after your digital well-being and doing what you need to do for yourself as well as for your community, like online as well. And I think hopefully that kind of, I'm just really reiterating myself now by this point, what I've said about, you know, like, us having an authentic voice on our social media, in our Slack groups, and hopefully I'm just repeating myself now because that sort of sums up what we want to say. But we did have one last slide, didn't we, girls, for that we just wanted to include before we wrap things up, and really that is a term coined by Hannah, who is endlessly able to come up with these amazing puns and memes, and that's an Oda to Clodagh. Because basically, from the start of the project, Clodagh has sort of brought her own brilliant way with social media, which is basically getting participants involved and getting them doing hilarious and fun things, and basically putting our social media into their hands and getting them to write whatever exactly it is that they want. For us to be able to hear their voices on social media in a much more direct way that hasn't been filtered, you know, through anything. So I've included just like a couple of story highlights that you would find on our Instagram anyway, if anybody wants to see more of them. But basically just, you know, she's someone who has taught us to approach social media in that way, and that's something that we've kind of been growing this whole time as well. So yeah, thanks so much for listening, and thank you for all your contributions as well. That's been brilliant.